Well, and I'm not trying to make you pick a baby, but if we think about, and some of these things, I'm sure you can talk about less than others. But okay, we've got like Golden Dome, we've got shipbuilding. I know you guys are working on solid rocket motor stuff. You've just opened this giant factory in Ohio. Not to make you pick your baby, we just went through one, but you have a lot going on. I don't know. Does one of those areas jump out at you as equally exciting or grab you in a particular way?
To me personally, is Palmer lucky? Absolutely not. There's nothing more exciting to me than human augments and transforming human capability directly. Palmer lucky, the Anduril executive who's looking out for the business and my employees and our customers, yes, those things are very exciting to me. I think the shipbuilding side is something that's really fascinating.
Can we do that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Okay, because I know we have a video coming on Navier, which makes this kind of foiling boat and
yeah, very familiar.
Yeah, and they're building
very nice, very fancy.
Super. I got to ride it. It's amazing. They're building some of it out here.
Really?
In Alameda a bit. I know they have I think in Maine or New Hampshire, they have another part of their manufacturing. But yeah, we were talking about obviously all the hurdles. The U.S. is woefully behind in shipbuilding, almost like really woefully behind. So and then I've got other friends, working on the California Forever project. Maybe there's some interest of getting a new shipyard up here in Northern. I have trouble believing this is real, right? Because it seems like we have such a long way to go from where we are to actually producing these things in the U.S.
That's true, but a lot of this is about an attitude adjustment. I mean, remember how fast we built naval capacity during World War II? I mean, we stood it up inside of a year.
Yeah.
We were cranking out many ships every single day. And so
planes too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm less worried about the whether it's possible and more about the will. I know it's possible. And people will make arguments like, oh, but Palmer back then, ships didn't have to be safe. Ships didn't have to be, ships could, they'll basically point out that you can't build a ship the way you used to today.
Less complex for sure.
But the point that I'll make to them is that autonomy is the thing that enables you to build ships like that once again. I don't have to build a ship with crazy anti-sinking long flotation properties if there's no people aboard. I don't have to dedicate weight, bulk, and cost to fire compartmentalization if there's no people on the ship when it gets hit. And I'm not saying you don't want to have any level of fire suppression. I'm not saying you want to make a ship that sinks at the first strike, but you can make a very different set of trades. You can also make trades like, I'm not going to, let's say I make an autonomous submarine. Maybe I don't have to dye, penetrate, and X-ray every single weld. Maybe I can move a lot faster because 1 out of 100 submarines failing due to manufacturing problems is just a cost to be managed in your balance sheet rather than a human tragedy that paralyzes the entire system. I mean, so I think autonomy is actually the only way that we're going to be able to get back to really, really large scale shipbuilding. I think building human ships, and I think even human aircraft, to the level of safety that is required in modern America at scale at a reasonable cost is somewhere approaching impossible.
You and I have talked
about, by the way, huge advantage that China has and that Russia has there. It's just a differential in human life. But willingness to accept risk on the part of a pilot or a sailor or a tank driver, it goes a long way in cutting costs. And I'm not saying that we should be more like them, but we should recognize that that's an advantage that they have. And so we either need to meet them where they are or figure out an asymmetrical way to go a different path.
You and I have talked about this before, but let's talk about it publicly.
Sure.
I've been following you guys really closely for a couple of years. Gotten to see a lot of very cool stuff. You've built this you're starting to build this huge new factory in Ohio. I mean,
Arsenal One.
So you're at this moment where you've been building thousands of things, and now you're trying to go to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of things. You guys have a lot on your plate, whether it's shipbuilding, whether it's autonomous aircraft, whether it's solid rocket motors. you could have a skeptical point of, you guys talk a big game. Someone could be skeptical that even with the best intentions, capital, smart people, making that transition has felled many a company. It's not easy to do. Like, why are we supposed to think that Andrew can pull off this big transition to this next stage of the company?
This is going to sound a little bit of like a cop out, but I'm going to try it. It's a little bit of a contrarian take. I can't possibly convince you, and I probably can't convince the public, because the level of detail and rigor and presentation required to do so is time prohibitive, expertise prohibitive, and maybe no one person can actually on their own come to that conclusion. Like, it might be there's no combination of words and things I could show you that could lead you to conclude that we're going to be able to make, let's say, tens of thousands of fighter jets or thousands of ships in a matter of just a few years. The people that we need to convince are an apparatus that exists on the US military side. And they have subject matter experts, dedicated expertise in each of the individual areas, in terms of composite airframe manufacturing, in terms of our landing gear design plan, in terms, we've talked a lot about how we've designed the landing gear on Fury so that it can be manufactured in any machine shop in the country. We purposely made the performance less than it would have been to do it in kind of a very bespoke way, instead designing it specifically to be manufactured. Now, I can say those words, but to actually audit that and prove that out, no one person can do it. It's actually a team of experts that collaboratively together, relying on each other's expertise, can jointly agree that this can work. And so I would say the proof is in the pudding. We've convinced the Air Force that we are worth betting on, but we have not done it yet. And so I think until we do it, I will not be able to convince you. I will not be able to convince anybody. There's no single person in the world who has enough expertise to walk away from a conversation saying, "You've done it. You've convinced me. It's possible." I think we've convinced the Air Force that it is possible. We could pull it off. And that's been convincing hundreds of people in the Air Force, each within their own specialty disciplines. And they jointly agree as an organism that we just might do it. I think that's about as good as we can do.
And since I've been,
so the proof will be in the doing. I think there's literally nothing else I could do that would prove to the layperson that it's possible, except for 1,000 fighter jets coming out of our factory and flying off the runway.
And with Arsenal 1 in Ohio, I mean, that is Fury, that is fighter jets.
It is.
It is. What else is?
And for people who aren't familiar, it's Fury is our entrant for the Air Force's CCA program, Collaborative Combat Aircraft Program, basically building autonomous fighters that fight alongside manned aircraft, augmenting them, doing things that are too dangerous, too risky, providing arms and sensor coverage where you wouldn't have it otherwise. So other things we're doing there, autonomous submarines. Did we announce this? I think we've announced we're going to be making Eagle Eye there. If we haven't announced it, consider this the announcement. We're setting up a line there to manufacture Eagle Eye. It's a 5 or 6 million square foot manufacturing facility. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about an enormous amount of space, and I think that our intent is to maximize use of that space. It's a very flexible design. We've designed the factory to be reconfigurable between different types of products and manufacturing, which is very different than building a line that is kind of fixed and bespoke to one particular thing. I mean, we'll see if we can pull it off. It's very, very, very difficult. But if you could do it, that's really what the country needs. We need flexible manufacturing capacity that allows you to jump between making the things that you need one day to the things you need the next, not one that is locked into manufacturing the same thing for 20, 30 years straight.